Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to round 10 of the 939 Corse Touring Car Championship for the first half of 2024. It's just over a minute now until lights out, and you guys were watching along for qualifying. The silent qualifying, I do apologise. I was getting myself organised after a very impromptu track day that I had on my little Mito QV today, and it was good fun. But we're going to have some more on-track action. Here is just under a minute now until lights out. As I say, it's Andy Craker and Colin Knief on the front row. Then it is Will Inglis, Barry Clayton, Rosie Oliver, Stephen Knight and Jack Hodson are competitors for this evening. And yeah, it looked to be quite a close qualifying towards the end. It was Colin Knief versus Andy Craker. Andy with that early lap that was just able to see him remain out on top. Colin wasn't able to get a strong lap in early on in the session. He was able to get a decent one in towards the very end. Unfortunately, though, it just wasn't quite enough, as he found out. We wait, though, for the lights to go green here at the Hockenheim ring of Corse. The first corner, a very famous section of track, plenty of overtaking opportunities throughout really on this grid. It is a bit of a DTM slash GT favourite, but here we go with 6 red lights on the gantry, and we are away for round 1 here at Hockenheim. There, it was a slow start for the car we're on board with here. We're on board with Rosie Oliver. As I say, it was a slow start for her, but she is back on the way. Hasn't lost too much in all of that, to be honest. So, still in the mix. Good to see Colin Knief hunting down Andy Craker at the moment. Half a second separate them. Maybe a little bit too close to comfort heading into the first corner. We're going to head through the Parabolica, and yes, it is in fact called the Parabolica. It's a little bit different to the other Parabolica that we are perhaps used to. Big difference being it's in Italy, the other one. But it's still a great bit of racetrack nonetheless. And here we see Rosie Oliver having a look down the inside into the hairpin. Well defended, though. Well defended. In fact, no, sorry, that was a different car. That was Rosie Oliver going a little bit too deep onto the brakes, perhaps actually contact between her and Barry Clayton. Barry Clayton forced off a little bit wide there, given that contact, and drops back to the bottom of the order. Let's see what he can do, though, because he's got good pace in these touring cars. And now we're going to head through the Mercedes bend. That is a definite pun in the waiting there. My brain just isn't quite functioning enough to come up with something to do with that car manufacturer and the fact that it's a bend. That's also half their name. Anyway, we're on board at the moment with Will Inglis, 1.2 seconds off the lead of this race. Colin Knief, you have to say at this point, a little bit more focus perhaps on the battle going on behind instead of catching up to Andy Craker out in front. Let's see, though. As we get later into this race, I suspect either these three are going to enjoy a big battle now, and no, they are not. Commentator's curse. Has he caught it? We don't know. The camera's... Oh, no, he hasn't quite... I mean, he's sort of caught it, so props to you there, Andy Craker, but it is Colin Knief now into the lead of this race. I think that is a little bit of commentator's curse, so I do apologise for that one, Andy, as we carry on through the first corner, the Nord curve, and all the way down to the middle sector of the lap. Expecting about a low 140s for race pace here, although I say that we've often matched qualifying pace in race pace, and it was a 140 was the pole lap last time round. So let's see if Andy Craker or Colin Knief or anyone else at the top end of the field can replicate that as we head further into the race. This is a good start for Colin Knief. It was looking a little bit scrappy on lap 1, but through no real effort of his own, I guess, although he was there to take a position, and through just a misfortune for the top end of the field. He found himself in a very good position indeed, 0.8 of a second clear of everyone else. There we see Will Inglis going to try down the inside on Andy Craker. Didn't quite work out there. They made contact. Andy Craker losing a little bit of his side skirt as a result, so I suppose a tiny little bit of downforce to be lost there. I suspect it'll be more drag than anything else, and it isn't the fastest circuit in the world. You might be suffering a little bit towards the very end of Parabolica and into the hairpin, but other than that, I don't think you have to worry all that much about straight line performance. There's a little bit of loss. Aerodynamic efficiency isn't the end of the world. Colin Knief, meanwhile, is busy setting purple sectors out in front, almost Verstappen-esque, really. Once Colin is out in front, just like Lewis Hamilton was able to do back in the day, he's just able to sort of check out. He's into the 140s already. His rivals in the high 141s or mid 142s. He's absolutely flying along. Is Colin. Let's see what's going on elsewhere in the field. And everyone is starting to build up a little bit of a gap now at this point. Two sets of cars close together. It will be Andy Craker, and then we have Steve Knight, Barry Clayton as well. Barry Clayton working his way up through the field. He will be one to watch as we head further into this race. 10 seconds off the lead at the moment. Really not bad given his start to the race. That unfortunate incident with Rosie Oliver earlier. As I say, I suspect Barry Clayton will be one to watch out. He's matching the likes of Jack Hodson, winning list for pace at the moment. Let's see what he can do as we get into the next phase of this race. And unfortunately for Rosie Oliver, it just wasn't quite the start that she would have wanted. It was looking a little bit scrappy. I think a bit of a knock to the confidence. The mental game is often so important, and just as important as the physical abilities as well. And I suspect that with that kind of slow start to the race there, you end up a little bit out of position. I certainly do. And you start making maybe slightly erratic moves or into the hairpin, or maybe the odd mistake here or there causing a bit of a slide, and that overheats the tyres. And now what we're seeing is she heads into the hairpin there. A fairly big lockup on these ABS-equipped cars. Well, I had a similar experience in my BMW recently. As I say, yeah, it can be a self-perpetuating issue. Let's see if Rosie is able to find some pace and kind of get back in the mix of things for the second race, if not anything else. Of course, a reverse grid race. We saw last time out just what a performance Rosie was able to put in a reverse grid race. Ended up coming away with a podium, so let's see if Rosie is able to do the same maybe this weekend. Going back on board though with Andy Craker, of course on pole in this race. That very unfortunate issue heading through the south curve was nearly far worse than it actually ended up being. So again, congratulations Andy, good save. I was actually seeing, I suspect, I'll take that back about Rosie locking up. I don't take it back about my BMW locking up, but that was terrifying. I suspect maybe it's the smoke effect. I should mention there has been an update to the streaming system, the PC that I use to bring this to your eyeballs, and that update, that small little detail of actually making it pleasant to watch again. Past couple of rounds, it was maybe wasn't most stable or smooth, and had to drop back some of the visual effects. I've been able to bump those back up, and we have some nice smooth graphics once again. She was actually inadequate CPU, inadequate processing. The graphics card was absolutely fine, and there we have it again. Andy Craker, I think actually in a different style that time. I've just tried the sausage curb, and as we learned in Formula 1 in 2019 in the wet, it seems to be the case you don't want to wash out wide there. The track is just not forgiving at all. He was able to catch it, was Andy Craker, but Willing List says thank you very much and is up into second place. Now Will, I imagine, is going to be focused on trying to hunt down Colin Knief. Colin, I should mention, is only going faster at this stage of the race. A 140.3 is his last lap, and is also his best lap of the race so far. Willing List, his best lap, a 140.6, but currently lapping in the 41s. Maybe a little bit of avoiding action needs to be took in order to make sure he was clear of Andy Craker. But this is now Willing List's chance in this race. There we see the smoke effects going wild. They, as I was saying, an indicator of some nice graphics effects that we have running in our AROC Racing League's mod pack, if you will. 3 seconds between Willie Liss and Colin Knief at the moment. Only 2.5 seconds there or thereabouts between Barry Clayton and Jack Hodson. We saw Barry was matching the likes of Jack for pace, but now we're starting to see Barry actually picking up the pace somewhat and starting to close up that gap. So I suspect I'm going to give it, let's give it the AWS data time. No, of course not. I'm going to say 2 or 3 laps, so about 3 to 4 minutes time we could be on for a bit of a battle here between Barry Clayton and Jack Hodson. I'm very wary to say that because last time I did, I ruined Andy Craker's race, but let's see as we head into the mid-phase of this race now. feel like now will be a good time to mention that in the coming months, as we have had in the past in far more official and proper racing championships with actual competent drivers, the AROC Racing Leagues is getting some representation in real life. In the coming weeks, I will be partaking, yes, that's right, me, in control of a vehicle on a racetrack. It happened today and I survived, so I think I'm trying it again. Of course, in between that, I'm also enjoying the Mito track day. So again, in an AROC capacity, I will be on a racetrack. Could be dangerous. Anyway, around about that time, I will also be taking part in the 24-hour British Universities Karting Championship race. That is correct. 24 hours out on track, and we are running a livery which is my former university colours. I'm an alumnus of University of Liverpool, so it'll be our university covers covered in some lovely AROC Racing Leagues stickers, I'm pleased to report. So we'll be seeing some real-life racing action. I have asked if I can commentate as well. We will see when they get back to me if that is possible, because wouldn't that be fun? Some racing and some commentary, but we shall see. So as I say, yes, the AROC Racing League is getting some representation in real life as well. Let's have a look at some representative times from Barry Clayton and Jack Hodson. 1.4 seconds is the gap between Barry Clayton and Jack Hodson. Closing that gap down is Barry Clayton, actually on for a very strong lap indeed. Losing out a little bit through the first sector, which isn't too long on this lap, but looking strong through the middle, and as is Delta's stand at the moment, he's going to be gaining in the third sector as well. He's now only 7 tenths, make that 6 tenths, make that 5 tenths behind Jack Hodson. And now the battle is on, ladies and gentlemen. It just looks at this point that Barry Clayton has a little bit more confidence in the front end of the car going through some of those final corners there. It just looks like he trusts it to grip up and has just closed a substantial amount of time as a result. And there we have that last lap being his fastest lap of the race so far. Was 2 seconds a lap faster than Jack Hodson last time around. Is going to be going around the outside as we head into the corner, heading towards Parabolica, which is in fact unnamed. Heading on to the Parabolica now, and a good defence from Jack Hodson so far. I get the feeling, just based off how he's driving, Jack Hodson's kind of realised he hasn't got the pace to match Barry Clayton at this point, so he's putting on a good defence, which is something we've seen in the past from Jack Hodson. So let's see how he fares in this battle now. Meanwhile, out in front, I should mention, Colin Knief 5 seconds clear of Willing Bliss. Keeping his cards close to his chest at this point in time, though, is Jack Hodson. Barry Clayton following him into the corner. Didn't want to try any brave moves. Just has to ask Barry what can happen if you go a little bit too brave into that hairpin. It seems to be going rather well for him at the moment. He's keeping up, but as we've said in the past, it's one thing to keep up, it's another thing to overtake. That extra pace delta you need in order to get an overtaking opportunity kind of sealed and locked in is very much different to the pace you need simply to catch up. It's a very different game trying to get past safely. And here in this third sector of the lap at the Hockenheim ring, you don't have too many opportunities to do so, really. And I suppose if you're brave through the maybe Mobile or the South Curve heading into those right-handers, other than that, though, you're kind of waiting, really, to get a better run out of this corner of the South Curve and jump onto the start-finish straight. And I think Barry Clayton was on for that, although I don't know if you just caught that, viewers. That was a little bit of a twitch at the rear end of his car as he got back onto the start-finish straight. And that's going to cost him a little bit of momentum running into that first corner. That might cause him to suffer a little bit, I suspect not. I think it's enough of a braking zone into the first corner. There are some tracks where you see if you lose momentum through the start-finish straight, the first corner is wide and open enough where you're going to feel that momentum being lost heading down through maybe even to the second sector of the lap. I know it's not the first corner of the track, but for an example, the Silverstone current Grand Prix layout, as you exit Brooklands and Luffield and you head down to oh dear, Jack Hodson. What a shame there. I think that might have been a stall he was trying to avoid. These GT cars with 600 horsepower V6s on board do of course have sequential gearboxes, 6-speed sequential gearboxes. I believe a replica of the Hewland gearboxes that most GT cars run, if I'm not mistaken. And these sequential gearboxes will stall for you, not like a modern dual clutch or an automatic or a true automatic where it will shift up and down for you. You can shift up and down without the clutch, but it won't do it for you. that almost looked like Jack Hodgson was in too high of a gear for the corner, and he tried to catch it by dumping the clutch, and that just kicked the back end of the car out. That was a very odd spin out for Jack Hodgson there. It's made things easier for Barry Clayton, that is for sure. As he heads on to the next lap, he is running in P4 at the moment, with just over 10 minutes to go in this race. 142.3 last time out for Barry Clayton. Andy Craker in the 141.3s. He's in a little bit of no man's land at the moment, is Andy Craker. Not quite got the pace of those out in front. Certainly quicker than the midfield. But yes, those two in the front, Colin Knief and Will Inglis, running rather well at this point, both in the 40s. Best lap being a 40.3 for Colin Knief, Will Inglis being a 40.6 on their current pace. So the last lap for Colin Knief, 40.6 and Will Inglis 40.9. So that 0.3 of a second delta between the two cars has been maintained in terms of pace. So if they were closer on track, I suspect we'd have quite a meaty battle between the two. Unfortunately, we're not quite getting that at this moment in time. Here we're seeing a meaty battle between Rosie Oliver and Steve Knight heading in to the corner, heading towards Parabolica. It's going to be Rosie Oliver on the inside, Steve Knight on the outside, but that gives him the inside for the next left-hander running into Parabolica, and they are side by side. Rosie's going to have the long way round, but if she keeps at that position, she's going to have the inside line for the hairpin coming up next, and actually looks to be her car is slightly stronger in a straight line here. So it is Rosie Oliver's position for the taking at this point, and that looks to be secured now for Rosie, or does it too deep into the corner? And a spin with a sympathy spin for Steve Knight there. Steve Knight in sympathy sort of ran a little bit wide as well. I suspect was kind of judging Rosie's braking points as his braking points. That went very wrong indeed. And it went a little bit more wrong when they accidentally made contact and spun out. Steve Knight ends up ahead of Rosie Oliver now, which I think was what was going to happen without that contact anyway. Unfortunately for Rosie, I think that hairpin is just a bit of a sticking point here on track. She's got to be wary. And what I suspect is she might be a little bit more comfortable with that hairpin now, but the tyres are just going to be squares at this point. They're just going to be absolutely just ruined with the amount of locking up that's already happened. It's a self-perpetuating issue, as we were talking about before. The tyres are just going to wear down even more and more and more the more you lock up, and they're going to be more inclined to lock up in the place where they've already locked up, and you're just going to end up with a non-circular tyre, which is never ideal. And I think that could be what's going on with Rosie Oliver's car. Hopefully some setup tweaks she can make between now and race 2. Reverse good race to see if she's able to turn around her fortunes. She's certainly still enjoying a battle with Steve Knight, though. We were seeing in the past couple of laps she had more pace than Steve, was able to catch up and get ahead at the Parabolica. We're going to head through the first corner now and continue this fight. Here we see heading through the Parabolica. This time Rosie goes for the inside line. I suspect she's going to be a little bit more cautious on braking this time around. She darts out towards the outside of Parabolica, inside of the hairpin. Yes, plays it much safer on the brakes this time around. That does give Steve Knight the switchback, though. She goes a little bit slow into the corner, pushes wide out on entry. It's still going to be side by side for Steve Knight and Rosie Oliver as we head into the last part of the lap in just a moment. Have the Mercedes-Benz to negotiate next, but it is Rosie out in front for the time being. I suspect, though, her car is not looking the most enjoyable to drive at this point. It's quietly been a very good race for Steve Knight. This just seems to be getting on with it, is enjoying a battle with someone here. Although they are certainly slowing each other down in the battles. Their last lap, of course, owing to that early issue, was at 1:53, 10 seconds off the rest of the field. This lap will be a little bit more representative, but this is going to be one of those close quarters battles, I suspect, where we're going to see them bleeding time off the rest of the pack, just because they're having so much fun out there, which is what we like to see. That's never a problem in my eyes. We're going to head through the south curve, though, and start the next lap. Just over 5 minutes to go in this race. Let's have a look at their pace in a moment. At 45.5 for Rosie Oliver and 46.7 for Steve Knight. Let's see if Steve is able to fight back. We haven't had a look for a little while at Colin Knief, who's out leading the race. But there we are, everyone. There's Colin Knief having fun. And let's have a look at the drivers in the midfield. Barry Clayton, we saw him on a bit of a charge. Didn't end up needing to do much work to overtake Jack Hodgson. Currently running in P4, hasn't been able to catch up to the likes of Andy Craker, is lapping about a second a lap slower than him at the moment. Oh, that is very unfortunate. We have had Guy Swarbrick join the session, you may have seen early on, this is a great opportunity to get some practice in before race 2 comes up in just a moment. That is not an ideal start to things. I'm glad he's treating this as a bit of a practice session, that is for sure. So as we head towards the final 5 minutes of this race, let's have a quick look at how the championship is shaping up at the moment. And we suspected John Cole was on a bit of a roll and could push towards Colin Knief, heading through the past couple of rounds, as you will read about in the upcoming June issue of Alfa Romeo Driver. Colin Knief leads by 6 points. Now John Cole, if he was here this evening, would have been able to have closed up and would have been able to continue on that championship fight. As it stands, after this round, he's only going to have 2 rounds left to see what he can do. Mathematically, of course, still very much possible. It's just a very tall order. Likewise, it is also possible for Matt Daly, but it would require Matt to win everything and Colin to pretty much no longer be present. Has been a strong championship for the top 3, actually. Colin Knief, John Cole and Matt Daly, who are top 3 in the championship, 286, 218, 218 points respectively. It's been a very strong season for Matt Daly, just owing to other commitments. He hasn't quite been able to be present at every round, unfortunately, so has not been able to really fight for the championship this time around. Will Inglis, 146 points to his name. He is just about clear of the likes of Barry Clayton, Alan Matthews and Andrew Brammer, so this will be a very good round for him in building up that gap and trying to secure victory. Then we have P8B and Jack Hodson, Rosie Oliver and Steve Knight. So this is an important fight between Rosie and Steve. Jack Hodson, as it stands, will be expanding that gap between him and Rosie. And then we have Paul Milman, P11, not here this evening, unfortunately. We have Andy Craker running in P12, 45 points. So this will be an immense weekend for him. Even if he's not able to take away the top spot on the podium, he'll still be coming home with a good number of points there, and Leapfrog quite a ways up the order. Then we have Guy Swarbrick running in P13, 22 points to his name ahead of Rob Whitney and Finley Swarbrick as well. Of course, that will change towards the end of the reverse grid running. So still plenty of little battles here or there in the championship standing to enjoy, and that is Barry Clayton having an off at the hairpin. The exit the hairpin seems to be catching a few drivers out this evening, which I'm a little bit surprised by. I thought a GT car on a DTM/GT style / Le Mans style circuit, not as in Le Mans. That was a poor use of words. Le Mans style is in endurance kind of, endurance-oriented circuit. That's what I meant. Of course, single-seaters in the likes of Formula 1 that used to visit here, haven't done for a number of years now. But I think Hockenheim ring is best used as a touring car / DTM / GT / all of the above circuit, as I say. Still seeing a relatively close gap between Steve Knight and Rosie Oliver. Steve Knight been able to get back past Rosie Oliver this time round. Let's see if in the final 3 laps what she is able to do. Can she close up that gap once again? I think she's certainly got the pace. It just doesn't seem to have the consistency at this stage of the weekend. As I say, maybe some setup tweaks to be made. Maybe a difference in... I was about to say difference in tyre compound. It's not the single-seater running. Maybe she can dig deep in between the 2 sessions and find a way to improve the consistency in the car. And here we see this battle continues on, although it looks to be at this point with 1 minute to go, Rosie's not going to have quite enough pace to close up that gap. In the 43s on the last lap, so maybe I am mistaken. Oh dear, that is Guy Swarbrick having a bit of an off there on the exit of the hairpin. He has to watch out. There's some competing cars coming past there, including Colin Knief, who's not too far away from lapping. Now is a good opportunity for Guy Swarbrick to get underway before midfield heads on through. But we are going to have a look in a minute at Colin Knief, because he's not too far away from completing this race, and what a race it has been for him. Didn't get to enjoy the battle we thought he might for the lead of the race in the end, but has been as consistent as ever, shall we say, heading through the rest of the race at least, and I am sure that bodes well for the reverse race. He's going to have to work for it though, of course, fighting his way from near enough the back of the pack. Here we see that we're on board at the moment with Steve Knight, and there is Rosie Oliver right in his rear view screen. Heading through the south curve in just a moment. The timer hits 0, which means this is the penultimate lap of this race. And there we see Rosie going for a move. It's going to be side by side with Steve Knight heading into the first corner. The camera switch. They make contact. It's big contact there. Steve Knight was forced to go wide. Rosie trying to keep it towards the inside there. And it's Rosie who lost out in that towards the end. It has been a race to forget a little bit for Rosie this time round. Let's see if she can turn those fortunes around in reverse grid race, as I say. And that pretty much settles that battle, you have to presume, at this point. We're going to have to go on board, though, with Colin Knief. He's led a fantastic race, heads through the parabolic, and now has not put a foot wrong when some of his rivals, unfortunately, have. I'm sorry, Andy. It all ended a little bit too soon for you at the start of this race. Heading through the hairpin now, a corner which has caught so many drivers out so far this evening, including Colin there. The back end stepping out, nearly didn't quite have it I was so certain that it was going to be Colin Knief taking victory in this race. We do head through the final part of the lap in just a moment, though. Of course, no blue flags here in the AROC racing leagues. No obligation for those on the lap down to let the leading drivers through. It's just we have some excellent racecraft and courtesy and manners here at the AROC racing leagues, and that usually tends to happen anyway. And it was well executed there on a very narrow part of the circuit, might I add. But here we are, the final couple of corners. The tyres squeaming about. I suspect tyres will be one to watch out for at the end of the race in a few minutes as well. But we head around the south curve for one last time, and Colin Knief, hats off to you, sir. Another strong race victory here. Congratulations. It's P1 for Colin Knief. In just a few moments' time, as we see Steve Knight and Rosie Oliver being classified P6 and P7 respectively, it will be Will Inglis coming home to take P2 there. Another solid but quiet race for Will Inglis. Then we have Andy Craig, an unfortunate instance early at the race sees him lose his shot at fighting for the lead, but towards the end of the race certainly had the pace and was catching up with Will Inglis, as has stopped car on the track there, so Andy Craig takes some avoiding action. Then we have Barry Clayton, we saw having a couple of issues at towards the end of this race. Is going to be coming home though, and will be coming home in P4 as well, so didn't lose positions as a result. And it is Barry Clayton across the line, and then a little wait until Jack Hodgson does so as well. We don't have any victories out just yet, which is fine. Usually we expect them at the end of the evening's proceedings. So it's just Jack Hodgson to come across the line now. And we'll join you in just a few moments as we get ready for the reverse race here, the Hockenheim ring. Welcome back to the action, ladies and gentlemen. Here we are on the grid then for race 2, the reverse grid race here at round 10 at the Hockenheim ring. Just over a minute now until it lights out, and here is our starting order. It is Jack Hodson, Andy Craker on the front row. Then we have Barry Clayton, Will Inglis on the second, Colin Knief and Steve Knight next, and it's Rosie Oliver and Guy Swarbrick with Matt Daly as well rounding out the field. How nice to see Matt Daly joining in there. And Guy Swarbrick as well, of course. Guy Swarbrick, well, we saw him at the end of the session. Towards the end, this will be his first proper full race of the evening. So a few more cars out on track, just adding to that reverse grid race carnage, which is certainly not a complaint from me. Seconds then, the revs begin to rise heading into that first corner. It's more of a braking zone than you might expect, although we'll be going slower into that first corner, so a good launch could see you taking a couple of positions there. Launch ever so difficult to achieve well in this car. Let's see how these drivers fare. It's 6 red lights on the gantry, and we are away. I think everyone getting away rather well there, all things considered. Sorry, Steve Knight is up at the top end of the field. I don't know, as is Rosie Oliver. I don't know why the order was showing me something else. And there's big contact there. I think a few drivers going too hot into the corner has caused a bit of a kind of concertina effect in terms of the accidents there. It's Barry Clayton and Andy Craker unfortunately tangled up in that one. Will Inglis and Matt Daly making contact as well. Oh dear, it's been a bit of a disastrous start to race 2. A few drivers knocked out of contention very early on indeed. Here we are on board with Matt Daly, who's side by side with Colin Knief. This is something we've seen many times before, and we're going to see it again as we have Rosie Oliver heading into that hairpin, which was on. I'll try that again. Her undoing so many times in race 1. Seems to be working so far. She just needs to try and keep ahead of her sibling in this race, and that is Will Inglis with another big issue here, heading through the hairpin into the wall. A disastrous start to the reverse grid race. We may see a retirement from him, not quite sure. On board at the moment with Jack on trying to keep up with Rosie Oliver. Meanwhile, Matt Daly is ahead of Colin Knief. We haven't really seen too much of Matt Daly's pace, rather, so I'll be very interested indeed to see how he shapes up here in this reverse grid race. Andy Craker as well, another unfortunate start to a race here at Hockenheim ring for him. It could have been such an opportunity to bag a load of points and really jump up the championship standings and really make inroads into that midfield battle. Of course, he just won't be able to do that now, unfortunately, owing to those issues. Front end of the field, though, it is Rosie Oliver versus Jack Hodson as we head into the first corner. Matt Daly versus Colin Knief as well, but we're going to go on board with those two at the front for now, and we can see just in the background that battle between Matt Daly and Colin Knief as well, heading into the right-hander before Parabolica. Looks like a little bit too deep into the corner there for Jack Hodson. Is able to keep on top of it, and I suspect, we didn't quite see it, but Matt Daly might have done the same thing, just a couple of car lengths behind there, because Colin was able to switch back rather aggressively and take the position. In all this chaos, Guy Swarbrick has come out in P5. A good start to the racing action for the weekend for him. However, he is very much under pressure from the likes of Steve Knight. Then we have Barry Clayton and Andy Craker as well. He goes around the outside there, leaves the door open. That is Barry Clayton through, but Barry Clayton spins completely on his own, and that is a big traffic jam there on the exit of the hairpin. What is going on at the hairpin, ladies and gentlemen? Is there just a load of rubber down on the circuit or something? No, that only makes sense if it was wet. But what is happening there? Anyway, they are able to get going once again. Will Inglis has now jumped. He'll be glad he didn't retire, because he's jumped from P9 to P6. So he's made up 3 positions on 1 lap, owing to that unfortunate incident for the lower midfield there. And Jack Hodson just about getting into the lead of this race. A very opportune overtaking move there to get done on the narrow part of the circuit. Of course, going to head through the south curve now. It's going to be Colin Knief around the outside there. Matt Daly still in waiting as well. It's now Colin Knief between Jack Hodson and Rosie Oliver as we head into the next corner. All four then in tandem, all slipstreaming each other. As I say, not too much in terms of straight line speed as such at this circuit. The likes of the run through the parabolica, the only real time you're absolutely stressing the engine. And here we see Colin Keefe all over Jack Hodson now. It's going to be side by side as we run through the parabolica. Seems to have a little bit more momentum on the exit of the right-hander before the corner, and is now heading into the hairpin with the inside line here. But Jack Hodson is out in front. He's going to be brave on the brakes, so is Colin. Will that put him too deep on exit? No, I don't think it will. That is a great overtaking move there for Colin Keefe. Well defended as well. He should be able to defend it on the narrow part of the circuit. It's now just up to Jack Hodson to try and keep that pace up. Going on board then with Rosie Oliver. It's going to be Rosie Oliver and Matt Daly side by side up the inside there. Matt Daly, very nice move indeed, heading through Mercedes. Just boxes it off there as well. Seeing trading places elsewhere as well. We've got Will Inglis getting ahead of Steve Knight. Steve Knight trading places with Andy Craker. There's contact between Andy and Steve. And I don't think Steve really realised that he was side by side with Andy Craker there. And Andy just sort of had nowhere to go. All he could really do at that point was brake. But even then, I think it could have been too late. He was already halfway onto the grass. Either way, we continue on as we head through the tight part of the lap once more. It's Colin Keefe out in front. Jack Hodson, a big swapper on there, heading through the final corner. He did very well indeed to catch that. Actually, these downforce cars are not the easiest cars in the world to catch, and he is able to continue on there, but has lost a lot of time there, has lost momentum as well. It's now Matt Daly up into P2. It's business as usual at the front end, folks. It's Colin Keefe versus Matt Daly for the front end of the field. Now, this is Matt Daly's chance in this race. We're past the first 5 minutes. He's worked his way up into P2. Now he needs to show us what he is made of. Break clear of Jack Hodson behind, put some impressive laps in, and try and close that gap. Steve Knight and Andy Craker once again crashing. It's getting very elbows out indeed in the midfield here, as it's going to be Andy Craker out in front for now. But Steve Knight tries it down the inside. Could that compromise him on exit? It will. By just keeping cool, calm and collected there, Andy Craker goes wide on entry and is able to keep the momentum up. So he's sacrificing a little bit of time into the first corner, but he's able to absolutely gun it down the parabolica, whereas Steve Knight goes a little bit too hot into the parabolica, and that has cost him that position for now. So that's Andy Craker up into P6 then. At the front end of the field, it's Colin Keefe and Matt Daly separated by 1 second, and it is 1 second and shrinking because Matt Daly's on an absolute flyer at the moment. His personal best is 1 second up on this lap alone, so let's see what he can do as we head into this stint. One and a half seconds on that last lap. Matt Daly at 140.8, whereas Colin Keefe in the 141s. A slow mid-sector, but a very fast indeed final sector, which is where we saw Colin Keefe look very confident indeed. So it's going to be close battling between these two, I'm pleased to report. So that's an off there for Rosie Oliver. I'm not quite sure. Didn't quite catch it. Either way, she's back underway. He's a little bit further off, likes of Jack Hodson. Matt Daly, meanwhile, not able to close that gap up. We'll have a look at his pace at the moment. They come across the line in just a moment. So I'm see the brake discs glowing orange hot. They're not far off white hot. That is just how hard they are being worked. Because while I do say it's not the highest speed circuit in the world, there are some faster bits, and it's followed quite closely by some pretty slow corners, the likes of the hairpin, the likes of the mobile corner as well. Colin Keefe crosses the line there. It is a strong middle sector and a purple final sector as well. He's picking up the paces, Colin Keefe, It was a 40.3 in the last lap. That is a qualifying effort there. And then we have Matt Daly at 40.8. So Colin Keith just about has the measure at this moment in time. Let's have a look at how the championship standings shape up after the conclusion of the first race. It is Colin Keith in the lead with 311 points. Then we have John Cole 280, Matt Daly 218. Then we have Will Inglis 164, Barry Clayton 145, Alan Matthews not here this evening, Andrew Brammer not here this evening either. Jack Hodson though matching him in terms of points, P7 and P8 both at 117 points. Rosie Oliver is just ahead of Steve Knight and will be expanding that gap as things stand, now in P9 with 76 points, Steve Knight P10 69 points. Now we have Andy Craig at P11 with 60. What a shame that both races not going his way, but still a few more points on the board potentially here. Then we have, like so, the next it will be Guy Swarbrick running in P3, 26 points to his name, breaking away a little bit from Rob Whitney and closing up towards Paul Millman. 15 minutes to go in this race, and Colin Keith and Matt Daly separated by 3 seconds. Have a quick look at how the field spread is shaping up. Guy Swarbrick actually retiring from this session, unfortunately. Either deciding that there's not too much he can really gain from this race, maybe things aren't quite going his way. We did also see in the paddock earlier he was having a few issues with his virtual reality setup. I believe the likes of Colin Keith also run a virtual reality setup. I think there are some. It can be really rewarding when it works. It's just. It is still, I say it's young technology, it's been out for many, many years, it's still in its infancy, if you will, it's still kind of growing. Here we see side by side now, Steve Knight and Barry Clayton. It should be an easy move there for Barry Clayton, back up into P7 then. Yes, as I was saying, VR support for certain titles, not quite there yet. Of course, the big rumour being that's the next Assetto Corsa title, which will be a return to the more standard Assetto Corsa compared to the likes of Competizione, which is solely focused on GT racing, will not have the widest VR support out there, which is definitely a blow to some drivers, the likes of myself, who is by no means an accomplished driver, and you shouldn't take my opinion on it at all. I'm not a huge fan of VR. I don't tend to use it all that much. So, I don't think I'll be missing anything there, but we do eagerly await that Assetto Corsa release, because the quicker it releases, the quicker more mods will become available for it, and we can start migrating over to that maybe one day in the future. But it will offer some new technologies as well, leverage modern computers a little bit more than the current title does, some improved visual fidelity, and as well the extra computer performance will go wonders into improving the simulation as well. Jack Hodson has just lost a position there to Matt Daly, looking a little bit messy through the hairpin, so I think that was why that unexpected lack of pace became apparent. In fact, over the past couple of laps as well, he's been in the 43s, the car just hasn't quite looked all with him there. On board with Rosie Oliver at the moment, running in P4, we should mention, given how the previous race went for him. This is a marked improvement. Not sure, didn't get a chance to jump into the comms to see if there were any changes made setup wise, but I'd say she's looking a little bit more confident in the car at this point in time. So maybe just go back to what I was saying earlier in race 1, where it can be a poor start that just kind of manifests and and snowballs, if you will, and just becomes an ever bigger problem. Sorry, utter professionalism here. My headset just fell off my head, and I don't know why. Anyway, we continue on. Rosie Oliver saying running in P4, and this will be really good for her championship standings, actually, as we're saying. She's maybe given, well, it all depends on attendance for the final couple of races after this, round 11 and round 12, of course. And also it depends on what the pace is looking like. I don't think PH Jack Hodson is completely out of the question for Rosie Oliver, although Jack Hodson, I suspect, is more focused on usurping Angie Rama in P7 on the same number of points and maybe closing up the likes of Alan Matthews in P6. Rosie will be looking to expand that point margin to the likes of Steve Knight just behind. Only 7 points separate them at the moment, so a result like this would go a huge way into boosting those results. Back onto the start from straight then for Matt Daly. We were wondering earlier on, will there be a battle for the lead? At one point it looked like there would have been. Matt Daly was certainly closing up. Colin Knief, though, has been able to respond to that. Is in the low 140s. Let's just say best lap of it, 140.034. That would have put him on pole in qualifying. That would have put him on quali pole, is what I suspect I was trying to say there. And Matt Daly currently running in the 41s. Oh, a little bit wide there for Barry Clayton. I think we're getting, as we might have saw on board with Rosie Oliver earlier, and I think a couple of other drivers as well, I think we're getting to the stage of the running in the final 10 minutes. I don't think we saw too much of it in race 1, to be honest, so maybe something about race 2. But the tyres potentially starting to drop off now. The driver's going to have to think a little bit more carefully about tyre management and where the grip levels are going to be in the car, just in order to make it home safely. I say that, Barry Clayton running in P7 at the moment, but it's a shame, because what could have been for Barry Clayton, he's just gone purple through the first sector, runs through the hairpin now, tries to nail that exit the best he can. That exit, which, as I've alluded to already this weekend, has been the Achilles heel of so many drivers on this track by the looks of things. We've seen quite a few races just being undone by that hairpin. Just the entry into it, the exit into it, everything about that hairpin has been one to forget. It has certainly been less than full. Sorry, I was trying to come up with a pun to do with the word hairpin then, and I'm not sure why. Pointless effort. Guy Swarwick and Police Report is back in the session. Some more important practice runs in preparation for the final weeks, the final few weeks, the final 2 rounds we have of this series. Here we have a bit of a battle brewing, though. It's Rosie Oliver and Will Inglis heading through the Parabolica now. In terms of their pace at the moment, Will Inglis has the upper hand. It's a 141.1 for Will, 143 for Rosie on the last lap, and Will Inglis's best lap 2 seconds faster than Rosie. Let's see what the tyres are looking like, the fuel loads as well. The fuel loads will be getting light at this point, and it looked fairly textbook there for Will Inglis. Good exit out of the hairpin, contrasting there, and able to overtake. That's Will Inglis up into P4, Rosie Oliver running in P5 at the moment. 5 seconds clear of Andy Craker at this point. In terms of their pace, it's a 2.5 second advantage to Andy Craker. We have 7 minutes left in this race. We could be seeing Rosie Oliver under threat from Andy Craker in just a moment. Give it a couple of laps perhaps, but it'll be another battle. So it's been a Perhaps not the recovery Andy would have wanted, especially given his pace in qualifying and the very start of race 1. But somewhat of a recovery at least, to at least take away some points from the evening's racing. Final 5 minutes of this race, and I should say Colin Knief and Matt Daly out in front, who we haven't seen too much of recently, are really still flying along. Matt Daly dives into the pits though. No, he doesn't. I'm pleased to report it was a glitch with the timing system. That was... My poor old heart can't take too much of that. Anyway, they're still flying along. They're still setting personal best sectors, as I suspect maybe they've looked after the tyres well enough. And the fuel load is lighter, where there's a bit of pace being found once again in the cars. We often see this in Formula 1, especially where as the cars get lighter and you get longer into a stint, the Pirelli tyre seems to sort of open up almost and picks its pace back up. We saw that with the likes of Lando Norris at Imola last time around, where it didn't quite work out for the Red Bulls. It did for Lando. It was just unfortunately not quite close enough. As we see Guy Swarbrick diving into the pits there, he's very much treating this as a testing session, I suspect, at the moment. And the top two barely within 10 seconds of each other, and then they are a notable ways apart from the rest of the pack. It's going to be Rosie Oliver and Andy Craker, our two closest cars out on track, as we head through the Parabolica once again. 3 minutes to go in this race. Someone has had a bit of an off at the hairpin. That is Will Inglis. He's back underway, and please... Actually, I don't even think he had a bit of an off. I think that was a weird... Another aside here, but we're going to ignore it, though, because here we have, side by side, Rosie Oliver and Andy Craig heading into the final sector of the lap in just a moment's time now. That understeer that I thought I might have saw from Rosie's car before seems to have disappeared at this point. Rosie very much on the defence now, although I suspect round the outside it goes. Rosie Oliver here. No, sorry, Andy Craker rather. Well defended by Rosie as we head into the mobile right-hander. Just a couple more corners to go on this lap now. Instead, we've gone on board with Andy Craker. And stay on board with him with this magnificent camera angle and battle cam as we head towards the end of the lap here. Just a south curve to negotiate. You want to steer clear of that curve, just ask Andy Crager in race 1. A good run through the south curve for Andy. Will it be enough? He doesn't have the slipstream, but he appears to still just about be gaining. Who's going to be braver? It's going to be Andy Crager. I think Rosie just playing it safe there, sticking to the outside and conceding the corner. That is now Andy Crager back up into P5. Rosie down in P6. In the final 2 minutes of this race. Let's see though if Rosie is able to fight back as we head down the Parabolica. She will of course have the advantage of a slipstream where you're allowed to hit speeds of up to 165 miles an hour running in towards that hairpin. And there we have Steve Knight, I believe, being lapped there. That is in fact Steve Knight being lapped by Colin Knief. So we've actually got more lapped traffic, if I'm not mistaken, on the reverse grid race than we do on the race 1 of this evening. Crossing the line once more for the next lap of the race. And it will be one of the very last laps of the race. It's now, in fact, the penultimate lap of this race as we watch Colin Knief heading through the Parabolica in just a second. We're also watching Rosie Oliver just about keeping pace with Andy Craker, although I suspect perhaps not quite got the pace at this phase in order to really fight for it. Congratulations, by the way, to Andy Craker, who really clearly led quite a good race here. Has kept the tyres in a very good window despite his pushing on, of course. He started this race in dire straits. Well, it wasn't even a straight that he went off on. Absolutely tumbled back towards the back of the pack and had to basically run at full pelt for the rest of the race. Has worked his way back up to P5 here, and the tyres still seem to be working rather well, it must be said. 1:43 on that last lap. That's kind of, let's say, your average pace you're looking at is a high 1:41. That's where most of the field seems to be congregating around. The front runners maybe on a bit of an off lap, the midfield kind of where they're sat, and a strong bit of pace from the lower midfield seems to be around about that high 1:41 pace. Andy Craker, though, ignore everything I've just said. 1:43 on that last lap. Now, there was some overtaking to be done a couple of laps ago, but maybe the tyre's starting to drop off ever so slightly, especially given that Andy Craker, we know, can lap in the 1:40s. He's one of the quicker drivers out of the bunch here this evening as we watch Colin Knief. Speaking of one of the quicker drivers of this evening, begins the final lap of this race. And it has been another strong showing from Colin Knief, really capitalising on the lack of his nearest rival in the championship, that being John Cole, of course, and kind of breaking away really in the championship standings as a result. It will be 50 points on the board just from this one round, which means that with 2 rounds to go, it's looking more and more difficult for John Cole to close that gap up. Certainly not impossible, especially if Colin isn't present, but if we're going to be having these out-and-out battles at the front end of the field and both drivers are sat on the podium, it's looking very strong indeed for Colin Knief, although anything can happen just yet. As we run down towards the Mercedes left-hander in just a moment's time for the last time on board for Colin Knief. It has been a remarkable drive this evening. The back end beginning to step out a little bit on corner exit there, out of what is one of the prime overtaking opportunities on the track. That doesn't matter too much for Colin Knief at this point because he's got a nice comfortable margin out at the front of this field. He has remained in the 1:40s for the entire race. It has been a remarkable drive from Colin Knief, and it goes to demonstrate why he deserves to be fighting for that championship. He's just on a level of his own, really, is Colin, as we head through the final right-hander, the south curve, for one last time with Colin Knief weaving across the line in celebration. He gets closer to the pit lane there to say thank you to all those onlookers in the pit lane. It's Colin Knief taking race 2 victory here at the Hockenheim ring for round 10. Congratulations, Colin, a brilliant drive. Let's not forget about Matt Daly as well. Wasn't here in race 1, but was able to take a podium in race 2. There's Steve Knight in the background having some rallycross. Bit of a joke laugh there. But yes, Matt Daly coming across the line in P2. Steve Knight classified P8 there. Guy Swarbrick probably classified P9. And then next, rounding out the podium in the end, a bit of a quiet race for him, under pressure by Whittingliss. I think a few more laps and it could have been different, but Jack Hodson rounds out the podium here at the end of race 2. Then we have Whittingliss coming home in P4. Good race for him as well. Andy Craker, a strong recovery for Andy there with some more points on the board. And then we have Rosie Oliver coming home in P6 in the end. Some more points to add to her tally, with Barry Clayton not too far behind in P7. We have Steve Knight and Guy Silver classified P8. We do, in fact, have some victory donuts, I'm pleased to report. Thank you, Andy, there, opting for the gravel, which is an interesting strategy. It can work sometimes. It can also be very detrimental to donuts. And no one wants to be detrimental to donuts, of course. There we have Whittingliss coming home. Rosie Oliver partaking in some... They are strong victory donuts there from Rosie Oliver. Arguably the strongest that we've been able to catch on stream. So thank you all very much for watching this evening. Hope you've enjoyed watching, because I've enjoyed commentating. We'll catch you in a fortnight's time for the penultimate round of the 939 Corse Touring Car Championship, and next week, of course, for the next bit of single-seater action. So from me, good night.